Are you wondering how to find specific information from your large dataset? If you are looking for a time-saving option to do that, you may consider using a filtering search box. Hello everyone! Welcome to Exceldemy, your day-to-day Excel and VBA tutorial helpline. This is Hadi Bashar, and today I'll demonstrate how to create a filtering search box for your Excel data. For this video, I'll use Microsoft Excel 365. Here is the dataset. This includes the customer name, their region, and the product they bought. I'll create a filtering search box for this dataset. In the first example, I'll use the data validation feature in the filtering search box to filter and highlight the regions based on the filtering value. Now to apply the data validation feature, I'll apply this data validation feature in cell C15. So select the cell C15. Then move to the Data tab. In the Data Tools section, click on Data Validation. This opens the Data Validation window. From the Settings, in the Data Validation criteria, in the Allow field, click on this drop-down icon. Here you will find different options to allow the data validation. In my case, I'll choose the list, and to choose the source, click on this source field. Now, as I want to validate the regions, so I'll choose cells C5 to C13. You can see that the region column is selected. Now click on OK to apply the data validation. You can see that a filtering icon has appeared. Now if you click on this icon, here you will find the available regions. You can choose a region from this list. For example, you can choose Manitoba. Now I want my selected region to be highlighted in this dataset. To do so, I need to apply conditional formatting. To apply the conditional formatting, go to the Home tab. From the Styles section, click on Conditional Formatting. This opens different options of conditional formatting as I need to highlight my cells. So I'll go to the Highlight Cells Rules option. Here you will find different options to highlight your cell. In my case, I'll choose Text That Contains option. This opens the Text That Contains window. In the Format Cells That Contain the Text option, you can see Manitoba is selected. However, I want to refer the cell value of cell C15, so I will discard the current value and choose cell C15, and as the formatting option, the cell C15 will be highlighted with the default light red fill with dark red text. If you want to change this formatting option, you can click on this drop down icon, and here you will find different options to format your cell. However, I'll stick with this default formatting. Now to apply the formatting, click on OK, and you can see that the formatting is applied to this cell. However, I want to apply this formatting to the cells C5 to C13. For that reason, I need to edit the conditional formatting that I have just created. So move to the Home tab, and in the Styles section, click on Conditional Formatting. Now, as I want to manage my rule, so click on Manage Rules. This opens the Conditional Formatting Rules Manager, and this is the rule that I have just created. I want to change the cell reference where this formatting will be applied. So in the Applies to field, select the current value. Discard it. Now select cells C5 to C13. Now click on OK to apply the cell formatting. As a result, you can see that Manitoba is highlighted in this dataset. Now if you click on this drop down icon and choose any region according to your choice, for example, I'll choose Ontario, and you can see that Ontario is highlighted in this dataset. In this way, you can apply data validation to create a filtering search box. In this example, I'll type the name of the region in cell F2, and then the associated data will be extracted here from this dataset. For that reason, I'll use a combination of some functions. One thing I should mention here that I'll use a filter function here, and the filter function is only available in the Excel 365 version. First of all, I need to create a table with this dataset. To do so, click on any cell of this dataset. In my case, I'll click on cell B4. Now move to the Insert tab. From the Tables section, you can click on Table or press Ctl+T to create the table. This opens the Create Table window, and you can see that the entire dataset is selected automatically. Moreover, My Table has Headers option is checked. Now click on OK to create the table. As a result, the dataset is converted to a table. If you want to change the style of this table, then move to the Table Design Contextual tab. In the Table Styles section, click on this drop-down icon. Here you will find different available options of the style of this table. You can choose any option according to your choice. In my case, from the Light section, I'll choose None. You can see the style is applied to this table. Now I'll set a name for this table. To do so, go to the Table Design Contextual tab, and in the Properties section, you'll find the table name. In this field, type Sales Info. As a result, Sales Info is now set as the table name. Now I can apply a formula so that based on my value of the filtering search box in cell F2, the associated data will be extracted from this Sales Info table. To do so, go to cell E5, type equal filter The filter function filters a range of array. Press tab to autocomplete the filter function. As the array argument of this filter function, I'll use this table, and the name of this table is sales info. So as the array argument, I'll type sales info. You can see the sales info in the screen tip. Press tab to autocomplete sales info. As a result, the entire table is selected as the array argument of this filter function. Now place a comma, and as the include argument of this filter function, I'll check if the value of cell F2 is found on the reason column of this table. If so, then the filter function will return the associated data here. So as the include argument, I'll use the left function, type left. The left function returns the specified number of characters from the start of a string. Press tab to autocomplete the left function. As the text argument of this left function, as I want to extract the data from the reason column of this sales info table, so I will type sales info. Press tab to autocomplete sales info. Then to write the reason column, open third bracket, and here you will find the available headers of this sales info table. In my case, I'll choose reason. Press tab to autocomplete reason. Now close the third bracket. As a result, you can see that the reason is selected. Now place a comma. As the number of characters to be extracted from the reason, I'll use the number of characters in cell F2. To do so, I'll use the len function. So type len. The len function returns the number of character in a string. As the text argument of this len function, I'll choose cell F2. Close the parenthesis of this len function, then close the parenthesis of this left function. Now I'll check if the extracted value from the reason column matches with the value of cell F2. To do so, type equal and select cell F2. Now place a comma. As the if empty argument of the filter function, that is if no match is found, I'll type no reason found. Finally, close the parenthesis of this filter function. This formula will search for the value of cell F2 in the reason column of the sales info table, and if the match is found, then it will return the associated data here. Otherwise, it will return no reason found message. Now hit enter to apply this formula. And you can see that the formula has returned the value associated with the region Ontario from this dataset. Now if I type a different region name in cell F2, select the cell F2 and type a region name, for example Manitoba, and hit enter. As a result, you can see that this time the formula has successfully returned the data associated with Manitoba. In this way, you can use a combination of functions to create a filtering search box. You can use the combo box feature to create a dynamic filtering search box for your Excel data. In this example, I will use a combo box from where I can select the region, and based on my selection, the associated data will be extracted from this dataset to here. For that reason, I have created 3 helper columns, helper 1, helper 2, and helper 3, and use these columns to get the associated data. I will explain the details of this helper column later. You can see that there are duplicates in cells C5 to C13. However, for the combo box, I need to create a unique list of the region. To do so, I will create the unique list of these regions in a separate worksheet named Unique Region Worksheet. To do so, first of all, select the cells C5 to C13. Press Ctl+C to copy the values. Now go to the Unique Region Worksheet. And to paste the values here, press Ctl+V. As a result, the values are pasted here. Now, I need to remove the duplicate values. To do so, as all the values are selected, go to the Data tab. From the Data Tools section, click on Remove Duplicates. This opens the Remove Duplicates window, and you can see that column B is selected. Now to remove the duplicates, click on OK. This opens a message that says 5 duplicate values are found and removed, and there are 4 unique values. Now click on OK to close this window. As a result, you can see that there are 4 unique regions in my list, and using these unique regions, that are the cells B4 to B7, I will create a named range. Go to the Formulas tab. In the Defined Names section, click on Define Name. This opens the New Name window. I'll set the name as Region List, so type Region List. The scope is the workbook, and it refers to the values of cells B4 to B7, that are the unique names. Now click on OK to create the named range. If you go to the Name Manager, this opens the Name Manager window, and here you'll find the created named ranges, and you can see the region list that we have just created here. If you need to edit any value, you can go to Edit. You can click on the New option to create a new named range, or even you can delete the name. Now, close this Name Manager window and go back to the Combo Box worksheet. We are ready to insert the combo box here. To do so, first we need to enable the developer tab. You can see the developer tab is not enabled. To enable the developer tab, right click on any of the tab and go to customize the ribbon. This opens the Excel options window. From the customize ribbon section, in the main tabs, check developer. Finally, click on OK to enable the developer tab. As a result, the developer tab is enabled. Now to insert the combo box, from the controls section, click on insert. This opens different controls. From the ActiveX controls, I'll choose the combo box and place the combo box here. Let me resize this combo box. Now I want to create such a system that whenever I will click on this drop down icon of this combo box, the unique region list will appear here, and as I will choose a value from this list, the value will be transferred to cell D15. To do so, I need to edit the properties of this combo box. Right click on this combo box and go to properties. This opens the properties window. Here you can set the properties of this combo box. Go to the list field range. As I want the region list to be appeared whenever I click on this drop down icon of this combo box, so in the list field range, type the named range that we have created previously and the name is region list. And if I click on any option on this region list, I want that value to be appeared in cell D15. So in the linked cell option, type D15. By default, the combo box will initiate a search as soon as I select the option here. However, I want to disable this option. So go to the match entry section, click on this drop down icon and change the default value and set the value as 2FM match entry none. As a result, the search won't be initiated instantly. Now as I have set the properties of this combo box, so click on this close icon and the properties of this combo box is set. Let me check whether this combo box is perfectly working or not. To do so, first we need to disable the design mode. So go to the developer tab. From the controls section, click on design mode to turn off the design mode. As a result, the design mode is off now. Now if you click on this drop down icon, you can see the region list appears here. And if you click on any value, for example click on Manitoba, you can see that the value Manitoba appears in cell D15. So the cell linking is working perfectly. Now we can prepare the helper columns to initiate our search. In the helper 1 column, I will create a serial list of this dataset. So go to cell D5 to create the serial list. I will use the row function. So type equal row. The row function returns the row number of a reference. I will create a serial number starting from 1. So as the reference argument of this row function, I can select any cell from the row 1. In my case, I will select cell D1, close the parenthesis of the row function and hit enter. And you can see that the row function has returned 1. Now use the autofill feature to get the complete serial. In this way, the serial is created. In helper 2 column, I want to extract the serial number of this dataset that matches with the region that I have selected from this combo box, that is the cell value of cell D15. To do so, I will use a formula. So go to cell E5 and type equal. I'll use the if function, so type if. The if function checks whether a condition is met and returns value based on this condition. As the logical test argument of the if function, I'll use the isNumber function, so type isNumber. The isNumber function checks whether a value is a number or not. As the value argument of this isNumber function, I will use the search function. The search function returns the number of character at which a specific character or text string is first found. I will search the value of cell D15 in cell C5. So as the find text argument of this search function, select the cell D15 and press F4 to lock the cell reference so that I can use this cell reference across the dataset. Now place a comma as the within text argument of this search function. Select the cell C5 and lock the column reference by pressing F4 once, twice, thrice. Now close the parenthesis of the search function and close the parenthesis of the isNumber function. Place a comma as the value if true argument of the if function. Select cell D5. Place a comma as the value if false argument of the if function. I'll leave it blank, so press a pair of inverted comma. Now close the parenthesis of the if function. Let me explain the formula to you. The search function will search the value of cell D15 in cell C5, and if the match is found, then it will return a number. Then the isNumber function will return true. And finally, the if function will return the serial number of cell D5 if the match is found. Otherwise, the if function will return a blank value. Now hit enter to execute the formula. You can see as the cell D15 contains Manitoba and Manitoba is in the first serial in this dataset, so our formula has returned 1. Now to apply the formula across this dataset, let me use the autofill feature. As a result, you can see that our formula has found Manitoba in the 5th serial, and there are 2 Manitoba in our dataset. In this way, the helper 2 column will return the serial number of the dataset where the match is found. However, you can see that there are gaps between the 2 values, but I want the serial numbers in a continuous fashion. For that reason, I have added helper 3. So go to cell F5, type equal if error. The if error function returns value depending on whether an error has occurred or not. Press tab to autocomplete the if error function. As the value argument of the if error function, I'll use the small function. So type small. The small function returns the kth smallest number in a dataset. As the array argument of the small function, as I want to apply the small function across the helper 2 column, so I will select cells E5 to E13 and press F4 to lock the cell reference, place a comma. As a k argument of the small function, I will use the rows function. The rows function returns the number of rows in an array. As the array argument of the rows function, I will select cell E5, lock the cell reference by pressing the F4 key, place a colon. Again select the cell E5. This rows function will return the number of row in our selected array. And as there is only one row between the array E5 to E5, so the rows function will return 1 in this case. Now close the parenthesis of the rows function and close the parenthesis of the small function. Place a comma. As the value if error argument of the if error function, place an inverted comma. Now close the parenthesis of the if error function. Now let me explain this formula to you. The rows function will count the number of rows in our defined array, and the small function will return the smallest value based on the output of the rows function in cell F5. Now hit enter to apply the formula. As a result, you can see that the formula has returned 1. This is the first smallest value in cells E5 to E13. Now let me use the autofill feature to apply the formula across the dataset, and you can see the formula has returned 5, and you will find 1 and 5 in a continuous manner without any gap in between. So we have created a continuous list of the serial numbers with whom the match is found. Now let me choose another value from the combo box, for example Ontario, and you can see that the system is working fine. The match is found in the 4th, 6th and 8th serial. Now that our helper columns are ready, we can start working to get the customer name and the associated reason. To do so, go to cell B17, type equal, I'll use the if error function. As the value argument of the if error function, I'll use the index function. The index function returns a value from an array based on a condition. Press tab to autocomplete the index function. As the array argument of the index function, select our data range, that is cells B5 to C13. Press F4 to lock the cell reference, place a comma. As the row number argument of the index function, I will get the row number from the helper 3 column, so select cell F5 and lock the column reference. Place another comma. As the column number argument of the index function, I will use the columns function. The columns function returns the number of columns within an array. As the array argument of the columns function, select cell B5, lock the cell reference by pressing F4, place a colon, and select the cell B5 again. Now close the parenthesis of the columns function. This columns function will return the number of columns within the array B5 to B5, and as there is only one column, so the columns function will return 1. Now close the parenthesis of the index function, place a comma. As the value if argument of the if error function, place an inverted comma and close the parenthesis of the if error function. Now let me briefly explain this formula to you. We have inserted an array in the index function, and the array ranges from cell B5 to C13. That is our dataset, and this formula will return the value using the row number from cell B5 and the column number from the columns function. As the row number in cell B5 is 4 and the columns function will return 1, so in this case our formula will return the value from the 4th row, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and from the first column, that is the customer name column, and will return the value Peter. Now hit enter to apply the formula, and you can see that our formula has returned Peter. Now to apply the formula to the reason, let me use the drag handle, and you can see that the formula has returned the reason Ontario, and this matches with our selection from the combo box. Now use the autofill feature to get all the customer names. And you can see that this has returned all the customer names from our selected region, Ontario. Now let me check this with another region. Click on this drop down icon and choose Manitoba, and you can see that the list is updated automatically. I have displayed the value from selection of my combo box in cell D15. You can hide this value by applying formatting on this. To do so, select the cell D15, move to the Home tab. From the font section, click on the font color, and here you will find available colors. I'll choose the white color to make the cell value invisible. As a result, the cell value of D15 is hidden now. In this way, you can apply combo box feature to create a filtering search box. You can use the text box feature instead of the combo box feature to create the filtering search box. The advantage is that you do not need to create additional helper columns. To use the text box feature, first of all, you need to convert the dataset to a table. To do so, click on cell B4, move to the Insert tab. From the Tables option, you can click on Table or press Ctl+T to create the table. This opens the Create Table window, and the entire dataset is selected automatically. Moreover, My Table has Headers option is enabled. Now click on OK to create the table. As a result, the table is created. Now to change the style of this table, go to the Table Design Contextual tab. From the Table Styles, click on this drop-down icon. This opens the available styles for this table. In my case, from the light section, I'll choose None. The style is applied to this table. Now I'll set the name of this table. Go to Table Design Contextual tab. From the Properties section, in the table name field, type Sales. This is the name of the table. Now we are ready to insert the text box. I'll place the text box on top of the cell C15. To insert the text box, go to the Developer tab. From the Controls section, click on Insert. Here you will find different controls. In my case, from the ActiveX controls, I'll choose the text box. Now click here to place the text box. As a result, the text box is placed. Now I need to set the properties of this text box. To do so, right click on this text box, go to the Properties option. This opens the Properties window. I want my writing in the text box to appear in cell C15, so in the linked cell option, type C15. Now you can close this Properties window. From now on, whatever I will write on this text box will appear in cell C15. However, as I have placed my text box on top of cell C15, so you won't be able to view the value of cell C15. If you want to view the value of cell C15, then you need to place this text box in a different location. Now, I'll use a VBA code that will filter this dataset based on the product name. You can use VBA code to automate your tasks. You can insert the VBA code in different ways. You can go to the text box worksheet and right click on it and select View Code. Alternatively, you can right click on this text box and go to View Code. This opens the Visual Basic window, and you can see that a private sub named TextBox1Change is created automatically. This VBA code will only work on this worksheet. Now I'll insert my code here. I have already copied the code from the article. You will find the link of the article in the description box. Now let me paste this code by pressing Ctrl+V. This is a VBA code that will create a filtering based on the product name. Let me briefly explain this VBA code. This VBA code will filter the sales table that we have created based on the value of cell C15, and if you remember, cell C15 will hold the value of the text box. The filtering will be applied on column number 3, that is the product column. You can save this VBA code by clicking on the save icon or pressing Ctrl+S. Now, the VBA code is linked to this text box, and whatever I will write on this text box will appear in cell C15, and based on this value, this dataset will be filtered. To write the product name in this text box, first you need to turn off the design mode. Go to the Developer tab. From the Controls section, click on Design Mode to turn it off. The design mode is turned off. Now you can write the name of the product in this text box based on which you want to filter this dataset. To do so, click on this text box. I want to filter this dataset based on the product ring. So I'll type ring, and you can see that as soon as I have typed the letter R, the dataset is filtered. You don't even have to complete the entire product name. Now let's check if the filtering works for other values. So discard the value R. This time, let me type P. And you can see that the dataset is filtered accordingly. In this way, you can use the text box feature to create a filtering search box. you can use conditional formatting to format the dataset based on the value of your search box. For example, I want the entire dataset to be formatted based on the value of cell G6 and G7, where I will type the region name and the product name respectively. To do so, first I need to select the cell G6 from the Home tab. In the Styles section, click on Conditional Formatting. Here you will find different options to add conditional formatting. As I will create a new rule, so go to New Rule. This opens the new formatting rule window. In the Select a Rule Type option, I will format this dataset by using a formula. So, from all the available options, I will choose Use a Formula to determine which cells to format. Next, in the Edit the Rule Description option, in the Format Values where this formula is true field, I will type such a formula that will check if the cell G6 and G7 are empty or not. And based on this condition, it will apply formatting to this dataset. So write the formula here, equal if, as a logical test argument of this if function, I will check the status of cell G6 and G7. For that reason, I will use a combination of the AND function and the isBlank function. So type AND. As the argument of the AND function, I will use the isBlank function. The isBlank function will check the status of cell G6 and return true if the cell G6 is blank, otherwise it will return false. So type the absolute cell reference of cell G6, place a comma. As the second logical argument of this AND function, I will use another isBlank function to check the status of cell G7. So type the isBlank function. Now close the parenthesis of this AND function, place a comma. As the value if true argument of this if function, that is, if both the cells G6 and G7 are blank, then the if function will return 0. Otherwise, as the value if false argument of this if function, I will use a combination of the AND function and the search function to search the values of cell G6 in cell C5 and the value of cell G7 in cell D5. So type the AND function. Next, type the search function. This search function will search the value of cell G6 in cell C5. So type the cell address accordingly. Close the parenthesis of this search function, place a comma. As the second logic of the AND function, type another search function that will search the value of cell G7 in cell D5. So type the search function. Close the parenthesis of this search function, close the parenthesis of this AND function, and finally close the parenthesis of the if function. Note that I have logged the column reference of cell C5 and cell D5. Now, we have entered our formula based on which the dataset will be formatted. To apply the formatting, go to the Format option, and this opens the Format Cells window. From the Fill Color, you will find the available colors to fill the cells that meet the condition. In my case, I'll choose this color. In the sample field, you can see a sample of this color. Now click on OK. Finally, to apply this formatting, click on OK. As a result, you can see that the cell G6 is formatted accordingly. This means our formula to format the cell is working. However, I want to apply this formula to the cells B5 to D13. So, I need to edit the rule that I have just created. To do so, go to the Home tab. From the Styles section, click on Conditional Formatting. As I need to edit my formula, so go to Manage Rules. This opens the Conditional Formatting Rules Manager. And here we'll find the details of our formatting. In the Applies to section, this formatting is currently applied to cell G6. As I want to apply this formatting to the entire dataset, so select the current value, discard it, and select the cells B5 to D13. In the Applies to field, you can see our selection is transferred here. Now click on OK to apply this formatting. As a result, you can see that the formatting is applied to this entire dataset. And as the region and product is Manitoba and perfume, so our dataset with the records Manitoba and perfume is formatted accordingly. You can check if this works for a different region. Go to cell G6 and type Ontario and hit enter. As expected, you can see that the formatting is changed accordingly. In this way, you can use conditional formatting in your filtering search box. In this example, I'll show you how to apply the basic filtering. Note that this is not a filtering search box. Rather, I'll use the basic filtering. To apply the filtering, click on any cell of this dataset. In my case, I'll click on cell B4, then move to the Data tab. From the Sort and Filter section, you can click on this filter option, or you can use Ctrl+Shift+L to apply the filtering. As a result, you can see that the filtering is applied to this dataset. Now, if you want to filter this dataset based on the product, so click on this filter icon. and this opens the filtering options. As the select all option is checked, so you can see the entire data set here. However, you can apply the filtering. For example, I want to filter the products ring and watch. For that reason, I will uncheck the rest of the products. Now if you click on OK, you can see that the dataset is filtered accordingly. In this way, you can apply the basic filtering. I have demonstrated the step-by-step guide for creating a filtering search box for your Excel data. Hopefully, you can apply this knowledge according to your requirements and convenience. You can download the practice workbook from the video description to sharpen your Excel skills. Feel free to leave any questions, suggestions, or feedback in the comment section below. You can go to exceldemy.com to read our Excel blogs, or you can share your Excel-related issues in our Exceldemy forum and receive free solutions. For more content like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching our video. Bye.